Welcome to American Spectrum. I'm your host, Ali Waris. Less than 2 months ago, there was a terrible violent rumpus in at least 38 countries in which more than 65 people died. The protesters were extremely angry over a YouTube film, Innocence of Muslims, purposely designed to insult Prophet Muhammad. The film was shot and released in the US, which already has an anti-Muslim image throughout the Muslim world. As a result, the American embassies in the hotspot nations took the brunt of the Muslim anger, killing the American ambassador and some other personnel at the embassy in Libya. The producer of the film was an Egyptian Coptic Christian residing in California. The FBI provided him full protection from any potential attack on his life. Though the American leadership vehemently condemned the film, it expressed its inability to take it off the YouTube because of public's right to free speech. President Obama and the Secretary of State Clinton ran a series of television ads in Pakistan, distancing themselves from the film and explaining the law on freedom of speech in the United States. It is true that the First Amendment of the US Constitution protects free speech. However, what the US government failed to explain to the infuriated nations was that the right to free speech is not absolute. There are several exceptions to free speech recognized by the highest court in America throughout its history. For example, if there is no fire, shouting "fire, fire" in a cinema house is a crime because it can trample many by a crowd in panic. Likewise, expression of fighting words are not recognized as free speech, or a speech that incites violence is not protected by the First Amendment. In 1942, in the case Chaplinsky versus New Hampshire, the US Supreme Court unanimously held, and I quote, "There are certain well-defined and narrowly limited classes of speech, the prevention and punishment of which have never been thought to raise any constitutional problems. These include the lewd and obscene, the profane, the libelous, and the insulting or fighting words, those which by their very utterance inflict injury or tend to incite an immediate breach of the peace." Canadian laws, unquote. Canadian laws have identical views. In Canada, freedom of speech is generally protected under Section 2 of Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The Criminal Code of Canada, however, limits these freedoms and provides for several forms of punishable hate speech. The form of punishable hate speech considered to encompass fighting words is identified in Section 319, subsection 2, which I quote, "Every one who by communicating statements in a public place incites hatred against any identifiable group where such incitement is likely to lead to a breach of the peace is guilty of a crime." Section 319(1), Criminal Code of Canada, unquote. The Western countries, which claim trust in God, in effect shortchanged the Muslims by not applying their own laws to the blasphemy. Ironically, Russia, which has long been considered as a godless nation, on the other hand, banned the film. Their court made the announcement within days the news broke.
2012 года, город Москва. Тверской районный суд Москвы в составе председателя судьи Комиссарова при столе Захаровича России суд решил представление заместителя прокурора Москвы о признании информационного материала экстремистским удовлетворить.
How about that? See you next time. Until then, goodbye.